And there was one that came through this summer, and it said, like, congratulations. And so I was like, oh, well, I wonder, like, I was just curious. I was like, well, I wonder what NBC did that they got. They're sending out this mass congratulations, right? So I look at it, it's like, congratulations, you know, the Olympic coverage won an Emmy.
Welcome back. It's a brand new episode of Laugh With Me, a podcast with Jeremy Odom. I am your host, and thank you for listening to last week's episode titled Anthony Rogers. He was a fantastic guest, a very interesting story. If you haven't listened to it, it's always available on Spotify, and it's now available on Apple Podcasts. And this episode right now is the first one that will debut on Apple Podcasts for the first time. So thank you again for getting us to the point where we can go on these platforms, because I will tell you, Apple Podcasts, a little more stringent on what they will allow on their platforms than Spotify was. And this is nothing against Spotify. I'm a firm believer in Spotify for my music streaming and podcast listening. But Apple did have some higher standards. We were able to meet them, and it is now available on Apple Podcasts just for you. Shout out Cody. He has been asking for Laugh With Me to be on Apple Podcasts. In fact, he refused to listen to it on Spotify. So I don't know if Spotify did something to his mom back in the day. Maybe that's why she's dead. I don't know. But he refuses to listen to Spotify. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not sure if Cody's going to find that funny, or if he is going to be upset that I just made that joke. I don't know. I mean, we're going to roll the dice, right? We are going to roll the dice. New show announcement, stand-up comedy. Come see me live. I'm in Topeka, Kansas, November 16th. That's a Thursday night. We're doing Top City Comedy. Come see the show. Also, November 30th, Omaha, Nebraska, Funny Bone. Come to that show as well, no matter where you're at. I'm sure you can drive there. You can fly there. In Topeka, I'm going to do 7 minutes, and in Omaha, you get the best 5 minutes that I've got, so make sure to stop by. And as always, every Wednesday, a brand new episode of Laugh With Me. But now that we've updated you on where we're at with Laugh With Me and with stand-up comedy, we have a monster episode for you this week. We have, for the very first time on the show, an Emmy Award winner. Okay? For her work on the Beijing Winter Olympic Games for NBC. She is also a writer. She is also an actress. She is also an interior designer. She does just about everything. She worked on The Late Show with David Letterman and did some work in Los Angeles as well. You will be seeing more and more of her, but right now, you're listening to her on Laugh With Me. This is Emmy Award winner, Stephanie Purcell.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to get right into it. You are a member of the Olympics, the Winter Olympics broadcast. I mean, tell me about your role in the Olympics. I know it probably feels like it was a million years ago, but it was, just a year and a half or so ago?
Yeah. I was fortunate that I got to work the last two Olympics, Tokyo and then Beijing, with NBC. I was a feature producer. So we did kind of like cultural stories or like athlete profiles, more of like, I call them like more of a human interest stories. So not necessarily like the hard hitting, like sport follow alongs that you normally get from like Mike Tirico or anything like that. We're like the cutaway stories in between of like, this is where the athlete grew up and this is their families and these are the struggles they had and here they are now. So those kinds of moments.
So when you've got an athlete who maybe has a brother with a missing foot, like that's the kind of stories you're looking for.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear about. Yep.
So how far out in advance are you researching and like working on those types of stories?
So I'm freelance, so I'm not with NBC Sports full time, but they do obviously have full time feature producers and like a documentary department that kind of does these things year round. Obviously, in lead up to the Olympics, that's a priority. But I usually come on maybe like 3 or 4 weeks before the games. And we will have meetings ahead of time with like our supervisors and pitch some story ideas and things that we're thinking about. And then they'll basically approve or deny them, or maybe, move us in a new direction. And then we get their game time, and we have obviously a lot of resources that NBC has available to us to use to kind of put these stories together. We're usually paired with a reporter, and we go out and shoot it and turn it around pretty quick. We operate 24/7, so we have daytime editors and nighttime editors, and daytime producers and nighttime producers. So there's somebody always working and turning around stories.
Wow. So for about a month and a half, it's just nonstop.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So, but it's fun. I mean, we kind of all know what we sign on for. We know that this is what we're doing the next couple of weeks, and it's fun. It's a fun atmosphere. They treat us pretty well. I didn't get to go to Beijing. I was working out of their headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, which is a beautiful facility in itself. I mean, it's not like getting to travel to the host country, but their setup is pretty sweet, and they would do things for us like when it was in Beijing, they would have like themed food and snacks and like history and like just things throughout the office for us to make us feel connected more to the host country. So
you're working the phones probably a lot then, since you were not on site. So you're working phones, emails. I mean, how are you getting in touch with the reporter and like the athletes?
It's pretty much all through email. Because they're on a different time, we were on a different time zone, obviously, than Beijing. So we would normally just send out emails back and forth for the most part. If we needed something immediate right away, we could phone, but it was tricky and not always reliable. So, yeah.
Wow. So the worst possible scenario for you in that situation, I'm sure you guys have ways around it, but if the internet went out and you're waiting on important emails for broadcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, that technology, we're pretty reliant on it. So,
the Olympics, it's a big deal. It's worldwide. Everybody watches it. Everybody reads about it and follows along. Maybe you don't, in the build-up, but certainly during the games. What kind of stories, or do you have a story specifically like from the games that you'll always remember?
I mean, some of the stories that I worked on, for me, I used to figure skate when I was a kid, and so I got to do a story on figure skating costumes, and just kind of like the history of them and how the athletes make them. Like, some people do like Vera Wang, some people have their moms like literally sewing on sequins the night before. So so that was really fun for me because I used to be a figure skater, and then I got to go out and we interviewed Brian Boitano and Ashley Wagner, who were both obviously big Olympic figure skaters. So getting to like meet them in person and watch them skate live, that was a really fun moment for me. That was a fun story that I got to work on.
Anybody who's not familiar with figure skating, the costumes are just as important as the like athletic feat itself.
Yeah. So it's very theatrical. Like you have points for like execution and technical scores, and then you also have points for like your artistry, which is very subjective. And so your costumes are part of that story that you're telling on ice. So it can really help make or break, what you're trying to show or get across in your piece or your presentation on the ice. So a lot of people can spend upwards of, thousands of dollars on them. So it's definitely a huge part of the sport.
So in swimming, I know the The outfit they wear there can be technological advances with it to help them swim faster and cut through the
Mhm.
water. Is there anything like that in figure skating where maybe there's certain materials that are better or anything that can help them with balance?
When they're making their costumes, they put a lot of thought into like weight and like if anything's asymmetrical, like because if you're doing a jump or a spin, like that's going to throw off your rotation. So you have to really think about those things. Ashley Wagner was talking about a costume that she had, and it was so heavy that like she had a hard time like with her jumps because that's that much more weight. You have to like get up in the air and rotate. So it's definitely something that you have to think about and be conscious of.
And you grew up figure skating. How long did you skate?
Oh, not very long. I think I only did it like 4 or 5 years. I started pretty late. I didn't start till I was like 14. So, by that time, most people are like considering if they're going to go pro. So,
True.
so I was kind of a late bloomer in figure skating, but I just thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I had always done, I like to say I'm a professional hobbyist. I like to try a lot of different things in a lot of different sports. I don't necessarily excel at any of them. But yeah, because I had done swimming in Texas because we had lived in Texas originally, and then we moved to Nebraska and it was cold and I didn't want to jump in a pool. And so I was like, well, what's a winter sport? So I tried figure skating and I did that for a little while. So
that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, as part of your work on the Olympics, you are now an Emmy winner. Congratulations.
I am. Yes. Thank you. Which is very surreal. And the way I found out I won an Emmy is like the most lackluster experience ever.
Well, tell me about it.
So I'm a freelancer, so I don't work there full time. So I'm not always in contact with NBC. And it was, like I said, we said a year and a half ago or something at this point. And I still get emails from NBC. I think my email is somewhere in their system somewhere. Because I'll get emails and I'll be things like, you haven't done your sexual harassment course for this, semester or whatever. Like, I'll get random emails from the, like, I don't think I'm supposed to get, like, I don't think they realize I'm not staff, but for whatever reason, my email's still associated with it. So I get these random emails from them occasionally anyway, and I almost always just delete them automatically without really looking at them. And there was one that came through this summer, and it said, like, congratulations. And so I was like, oh, well, I wonder, like, I was just curious. I was like, well, I wonder what NBC did that they're sending out this mass congratulations, right? So I look at it, and it's like, congratulations, the Olympic coverage won an Emmy. And I was like, well, that's cool. Yeah. And, I didn't really think about it. And I was like telling Cody, my husband, and I said, oh, NBC won, we won an Emmy for the Olympic coverage. And he was like, well, that's cool. Do you get an Emmy? And I was like, I don't think so. I was like, I don't think I do. And then I forgot about it. And then the next day I was like sitting there, I was thinking about it. I was like, well, I wonder like who does, like who gets the Emmys for him. And so I go back to the email. I like find it in my trash because by now, I've deleted it. And I go back through it and it's like, click here to claim your Emmy. And I was like, huh. So I click on it and it takes me to like the official like Emmy website and it's like Stephanie Purcell. It's my name. It's like producer for the Olympics. You are eligible for an Emmy. Fill out your information if you want us to mail you one. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I want an Emmy.
I totally want that. And so I texted my boss right away from the Olympics and I was like, hey, did I win an Emmy? Like, am I understanding this correctly? And she was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like somebody should have notified you. She was like, you absolutely did. So I almost deleted the email and would have never known that I had gotten an Emmy.
That's so crazy. Steve Carell got to go to a party and he's on national television and he accepted his award and you almost deleted the email.
Right, yeah. So it's like the most like under the radar way I could have found out. Like very bizarre. But yeah, so
where is your Emmy like displayed? I'm sure it's displayed in your home.
Oh, it's on the mantle. It's definitely like front and center on the fireplace mantle.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you have like people over, is that the first place you go? You're like, I would like to introduce you to my Emmy.
Right, right. I actually think my husband is more excited about it than I'm. Like anytime people are over, he's like, like he's standing by it, like gesturing, like, "Oh, over here! Like, look at what we have." He's definitely my biggest supporter.
More with Stephanie Purcell in just a moment, but I wanted to stop and talk about how Stephanie found out she won the Emmy for her work at the Beijing Winter Olympic Games. She just happened to still receive emails from NBC, even though the job is over. She's freelance, right? So she's not full-time with NBC, and still in the system somehow receiving emails. And it got me thinking, do you think Conan O'Brien is still getting NBC emails? Do you think at first he was getting them when he was at TBS and he's just mad? I wish NBC would just take me out of the system. Then after a while, he starts to kind of follow along like a voyeur, and he's just laughing whenever things go wrong and complaining. Oh, look at those guys. They don't know what they're doing. You know, like you would if you were still receiving emails, you know, from a former employer you had. I just like to imagine Conan sitting at his computer with his hair all crazy and just ranting and raving to himself about NBC as he reads these emails. Hey, more with Stephanie Purcell now on Laugh With Me. Well, one of the things you said a little bit ago is that you kind of dive into a lot of different hobbies or a lot of different things and not really jump into one thing. And I noticed that, like looking at your work and looking at your site and just all the different things you're in. Most recently, you're in sketch comedy world, and you were promoting your sketch show that you wrote, Comedy Airs. Tell me about that. Like, how did you get involved in that, and where's it going now?
Yeah, so I actually started my career as an intern on a late show with David Letterman, and I loved it. I loved comedy. I loved late night, and that's what I was going to do. I was convinced, like, I was just going to finish my internship. I was going to get a job, and that was going to be it. And then the writer's strike happened in 2008. Everyone was put on hold, and my dreams of staying in New York City were cut short because I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to stay after the internship, and I went back to Nebraska, where I was a college student, and I lived with my parents, and I worked some local news, and I ended up getting a job in marketing, and that wasn't the dream. That wasn't where I thought I would be.
Yep.
But it opened up some other doors for me because I was in Nebraska. It's not a huge entertainment television city. So I would mostly get jobs of shows or productions that we're traveling through. So a couple like reality TV shows like American Idol, things like that. And then a lot of sports. But because Nebraska is very centrally located, there's a lot of sports that actually go through there. Like they have the Olympic swim trials and the International Horse Show. And so I would get on with those jobs. And so I was slowly building a resume in that area. And then eventually decided to take the leap and move out to LA. And because that's where like my most recent connections were, that's kind of where my career ended up going, as I ended up doing a lot of documentaries and reality TV and sport presentation, which was great. And I certainly love it. And I've gotten to travel a lot and do a lot of exciting things like the Olympics, but I still have always really had this like passion for comedy in the background. Like that's still where I'd like, you know, to have jobs as well. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I get back to the comedy world? How do I get back in that area? And so I started taking some writing classes with the Second City, did some improv workshops with them, and that's kind of how I started kind of getting back into it. And that's how the start of Comedy Airs, the comedy show that I did, came about. I had written some sketches for Second City, and I was like, well, I'm going to apply to the Atlanta Fringe Festival, since I live in Atlanta now. And I applied. I was like number 8 on the waiting list, like way down on the list. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not getting in. Like, I'm not going to worry about it. Because at this point, I didn't actually have a show. It was one of those things where it's like, I will apply to, like, make myself do the work. Like,
See,
it will give me a deadline, you know?
I was gonna ask you if you just have like notebooks and notebooks of like when ideas pop up, you write them down, or is it when I have to go to work, I go to work?
Yeah, when I have to go to work. Like,
Yeah.
occasionally I'll have something funny that I'll think of and I'll write it down, but then, like, I won't touch it until I have a deadline.
Yep.
You know, to, like, write something. And then I'll be like, where was that idea? Yeah. So I didn't do it. Like, I had a couple of sketches written for my Second City classes, but I didn't have a show put together. I didn't have actors. I didn't have any of that. And I was 8 on the wait list. So I was like, it's not going to happen. Whatever. I forgot about it. 3 weeks before the Fringe Festival happens, I get an email. And they're like, hey, you're next up on the wait list. We had someone drop out because of COVID. Do you want the spot? I had this, like, sheer moment of panic and, like, oh my gosh, 3 weeks to put a show together. And I said yes. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to turn down an opportunity.
Yeah, I was like, I want to do comedy. This is an opportunity in comedy. So I'm going to say yes. And it was insane. It was so hard. It was so much work. I was in a local improv group here in Atlanta, and I basically just asked friends and people that I knew and was like, can you be in it? Like, I didn't have, like, auditions or anything. I just, like, relied on friends. I had friends fly in from LA and Chicago that I knew that I just really liked, and they were like, yeah, we want to be a part of it. So I was very fortunate that I had some really great people that just jumped in last minute. And then I banged out the scripts, and we just practiced like 3 days a week until the show. And then we did the show. I mean, it was rough and ready, but we did it. And it turned out really great. We did it like a sketch show, like that you would see kind of Saturday Night Live-ish.
Yeah.
We did 4 live sketches and then 3 film sketches. So then I took the film sketches and I've since been putting them in a bunch of film festivals. And they've been doing really well. We've gotten some awards, and so it's been going well. And I think I'm going to just continue to try and do sketches and film them and keep putting them in festivals and just kind of see where it goes, see what happens.
So when you had to quickly put together a cast and you're putting together a sketch show that wasn't written yet and you're writing, did you take into account, like, you know these people, you know their strengths? I mean, did you, when you were writing, did you take that into account?
Absolutely. Yeah. I asked people that I felt could do the characters that I was writing. So in that respect, it was really nice because I didn't have time to go through, like, a formal casting process or anything like that. I just was like, here's a sketch I have. Like, I had a great character sketch of a snarky waiter, and this wonderful actor named Ollie, he was in my improv class, and he has done a lot of work with, like, food service, and he just has this great, like, very dry, sarcastic sense of humor. And I was like, he will be perfect for this. He will be perfect. So I just asked him, and he was thankfully available, and he was great. The sketch was a hit because of him. So,
and I don't know if it was part of this show or not, but I saw a video. It was you and a couple, or you and a boyfriend or another guy were walking past a baby stroller, and you make you stop to look at the baby, and then there's a line, and then when you look at the baby, then that's the punchline. What's inside? The stroller. Was that part of the show, or is that like a separate?
No, it was.
Separate
bit. Yeah, that was part of the show. That's Baby Blackouts. They're just like 3 mini short, like they call them, like, blackout sketches.
Yep.
Just because they are so short. And we actually I just got an award at the All the Last Film Festival for best like mini sketches, it won. And so the director of the festival just dropped off the trophy last night. So
Wow, congratulations.
yeah. So it's sitting up there on the mantle next to the
You're
Emmy
going to
show.
need a trophy room soon.
I know, right?
Wow. Well, I thought it was hilarious. So when you cut inside and there's the, he's our little man, I was dying.
But it's like Winston Churchill, yeah. Yes, yeah.
You had said earlier, another sketch I'd seen where you were doing like a nightly newscast or like local newscast. Is that something similar to what you have done or doing in these sketches, or is that like a separate kind of acting reel?
No, that was for the sketch show as well. Yeah.
Oh, that was funny.
Yeah, that was just like a topical sketch, kind of based on like the news desk of SNL. So yeah.
Yep. And I'm sure your experience in local news, I'm sure that was a lot of fun then to write.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, a lot of sketches are based on like experiences or things that have happened, which a lot of people write about.
Yep.
Things that have happened within my experiences, so that's not uncommon. But
well, that's I find it very therapeutic when I'm writing stand-up to do grocery, related jokes, just because I feel like I can get out of my system since it's been part of me for so long.
Right.
Like, what are some inspirations, like especially in comedy, like that you look at that you were kind of molded who you are?
Oh, I love Tina Fey. Anything she touches, I feel like, is gold. Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Mindy Kaling, Maya Rudolph. Like, I just love all those women. I will watch or read anything that they do.
So you're still racking up awards, but like, what's next? I guess, is there something you're working on, or do you have ideas of where you want to go from here?
Yeah, my next step is I want to sell a show. And so I am working on pitching a couple, writing a couple, working on some spec scripts and pilot scripts, actively in that process of trying to sell a show, or at least get it optioned. So,
That's awesome. So is that process, is it fun? Like, does it drive you, or is it full of speed bumps that become, I don't know, I guess it wears on you?
Both.
Yeah.
The creative process for me is always fun. I'm also very goal-driven or goal-oriented. So I want to see that accomplishment, that end. And so that kind of drives me through the speed bumps. But yeah, I can, there's a lot of setbacks with anything creative, and it can get frustrating and tiring at times.
Yeah.
But, you know how that goes.
Oh yeah.
You're creative.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's it was funny. I was just telling Ashley the other day. I'm like, whenever I'm creating something, like, it's fun. Like, there's the juices are flowing. You're creating something, but there's just something about when the project's done and you kind of just get to push and promote and try to see where it can go. Like, that part right now, I'm finding very like calming. And that stresses some people out when it's done. But for me, it's like, that's the calming part.
I definitely don't view it as calming. That would be the word I would use.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's more like a matter of like pride and like proving I can do it.
Yeah, I can see that.
I want to prove that,
Yep.
I can sell it.
Well, your background proves you will. So I'm sure that day's coming, and I can't wait to see, everything that comes from it. New show announcement. You're hearing it here first. Listening to Laugh With Me, live stand-up comedy. See me live in Topeka, Kansas, Top City Comedy, Thursday, November 16th. That show was just added. Also, Omaha, Nebraska, Funny Bone, November 30th. That is also a Thursday. Come see the best 5 minutes I've got for you. Support live stand-up comedy wherever you are at. More with Stephanie Purcell next. So this is the part of the show where I'm always looking up or thinking and writing new joke ideas. And I'm the opposite of you. I'm not the person that, okay, when it's time to work, I work. I'm constantly writing little things down that may never become anything, but in that moment, I think it's
Great,
genius.
though.
And
Yeah.
what I'm finding though is when I go back and I tell this idea to somebody, it wasn't genius. I don't even know where my mind was in that moment.
You had to be there, right?
You had to be there. Yeah, exactly.
You had to be there.
I need a reality show. I need a camera on me because in that moment it was good. I promise.
Right. Oh, I'm sure. I believe you.
So I'm going to take one bit, I guess, and it's very undeveloped, but I want to run it by you and see. You tell me if I have anything, if it's funny, or if Jeremy needs to keep working at the grocery store, and then I have a sketch idea that I do think is gold, and I came up with it once you agreed to do the show. I was like, I want to write a sketch and see what you think.
Oh, man. Okay.
So anyway, here's the stand-up joke. So the bit is, because I'm not old. Like, I know I'm 40, but I'm not like, I'm still young, and but I am old in some respects. So I'm not old, but all my eyebrows grow in perfect except for like 3 super long ones.
I like that.
Okay.
I feel like I could relate to that.
I'm not old, but I'm this old. My body's still fully functional other than the pops in my knees, my ankles, my shoulders, my elbows.
That one's more obvious.
True, yes. I'm not old, but I'm old enough that I've heard someone older than me say working hard or hardly working thousands of times, and it drives me nuts.
Yes. Same.
I look young enough that when I do something small for an older guy, he tells me that I'm a gentleman and a scholar.
Oh.
I don't know if that means anything. That might be only something I think males would understand, because you've probably never been told you're a gentleman and a scholar when you did something nice for somebody.
No, I don't get that a lot.
Yeah. I'm not old, but I'm old enough that I'm taking a medication that there's TV commercials of, and I got some of the side effects.
Yes. Yeah, I like that one.
All right.
I like that one.
All right, that's a
I
good
like
one.
that one and the eyebrow one the best.
All right,
That's
I'll stick with those two. Maybe I have something with this one. All right,
I like it.
the sketch I'm very proud of. I think this is gold. You know what? If you think this thing can win in some film festivals, maybe I'll film it. You tell me. But
What do I know?
here's the sketch idea. Okay. The location is a grocery store. The main character is a female, and she has a grocery cart, and she's walking into the grocery store. So everything you're seeing is her trip through the grocery store. She does not talk. The only sounds you hear are the normal sounds you hear at a grocery store. So there's the hustle and bustle, there's the carts rolling, there's the music playing. You might hear employees, asking people if they need help or whatever. And she's going about the store shopping. She's in produce. She's checking the melons, and she's grabbing what she wants. She's getting lettuce. She's getting apples. Heads back to the bakery, maybe get some buns, throws it in the cart. She's having a great time. She's going to the meat department. She's getting a couple pounds of ground beef from the meat counter. The meat employee is fantastic, smiles, says thank you, hands it back to the customer, and she keeps rolling through, goes to the dairy, gets some eggs, checks the eggs, right? She gets the eggs, heads up to the front, checks out, no issues, bags it up, puts it in the cart, goes out to her car. Then we see her in the car. She's listening to music, seems to still be having a nice little day. Pulls into her driveway, pulls into the garage, opens the trunk, gets her groceries. Husband comes out, grabs the groceries too. They go inside. As they're unloading, he goes, "How was your trip at the store?" And she just unloads on him on how terrible everybody at the grocery store is, and how awful of a job they do there, and how they had nothing that she needed.
Oh, interesting. That reminds me of, do you watch 30 Rock?
Here and there, yeah.
Okay, there's an episode, not because, I'm a huge Tina Fey fan,
Yeah.
where she she remembers high school as like everyone was so mean to her and she was like the misfit. And then she goes back to the reunion and then we as the audience see and realize that she was actually the bully in the
Yeah.
one and everyone didn't like her.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yep.
It's so funny.
See, the customer had a normal experience, but in today's world, you never know what somebody's thinking, and the complaints come rolling through. And a lot of times those complaints come through social media anymore, and you don't even know there was an
Right.
issue if there was an issue. But all the people we see at the store, and everybody seems fine, like we're doing our job, and then
Right.
complaints
and then they turn
come
around and
flying
blast
in.
you. Yeah. I think it'd be funny too if you showed like her perspective versus their perspective.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
how we saw it go down and then how she thinks it's going down.
Yep.
That
Like,
would be funny to see.
we think she grabbed all the produce that she needs and it's just fine, but when you go to her perspective, there's a moldy apple or
Right.
Yeah, that's a great idea. See, this is
Yeah,
why
there's-
you're the award winner and I'm the guy hosting the podcast. This is exactly.
No.
Well, Stephanie, thank you. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I got to feel famous for like a minute there.
Well, I don't know about you, but if I walked into my home and I saw, the awards and I'm working with very talented people every day like you are, I guess I would feel famous in that, but I don't know.
Aw,
But yeah,
shucks.
congratulations on all your success. I look forward to
Thanks.
seeing even more from you. I know we will. And
Aw.
thanks again. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Well, that's our episode for the week, episode 7. Way more to come. Brand new episodes every single Wednesday. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Most likely you've already found it in one of those two spots because you're listening to me talk on one of those platforms right now. So me actually promoting those very things on the show doesn't actually make any sense. I'm just now realizing that. Stick to promoting the live shows, Jeremy, because promoting the platforms that they are listening to the show on is dumb. So I'll learn. The show will get better. Thanks for listening.